At the core of my faith belongs the conviction that we are the beloved sons and daughters of God. And one of the enormous spiritual tasks we have is to claim that and to live a life based on that knowledge. And that's not very easy. In fact, most of us fail constantly to claim the truth of who we are. These are the words of Henry Nouwen, one of the most beloved and important spiritual thinkers of the 20th century. This is his story.
He found a way in his writing to tap into concerns that everybody feels, but not everybody is comfortable about expressing.
It all comes down to when they read Henry's books, they feel Henry is reading their souls. It's like this book is written just for them.
He knew instinctively that he could use his own humanness, his own woundedness, in a way that would help ordinary people find grace and find that opening into the Grand Canyon of God.
Henry Nouwen emerged as one of the most prolific and perhaps the most widely read spiritual writers of our time.
We thank you for Jesus, who you have given to us to lead us always closer to your heart. And he gave the cup to his friends and he said, "Take this, all of you, and drink from it. Do this to remember me."
When this Dutch-born Catholic priest died in Holland on September 21st, 1996, the world lost a great spiritual leader and guide. Henry Nouwen was a man who, through his writings, became a source of inspiration and hope for millions.
Can you drink the cup?
In constant demand, this dynamic man of faith reached vast audiences through his sermons, lectures, and public appearances.
I was very, very convinced from the very beginning that ministry is to lay down your life for your friends, okay? Like Jesus said, being a shepherd is the one who lays down his life for his friends. But laying down your life, you have to have first a life to lay down, you know? You have to know who you are, your pain, your anguish, your doubts, your confusion. How can you really enter into that and discover there God's healing grace? And when you, and to make that experience, that adventure with God is in your own life as a kind of the source of your ministry.
It was this deep conviction to live and write from a place of vulnerability and truth that set Henry apart. In his books and lectures, he explored the depth of the human condition, continually acknowledging his own brokenness and pain.
I'm really grateful to be with you here this morning and to share my faith with you. That you and that I and that we are the beloved daughters and sons of God.
I think his concept of the beloved is so important because in his mystical moments, he could see through his false self into his true self, which was the beloved of God.
Conversion is claiming again and again and again the truth of myself. And what is the truth of myself? That I'm God's beloved child. Long before I was born, and my father and mother and my teachers and my church got involved, and I will be God's beloved child long after I've died. I go from God's intimate embrace until God's intimate embrace. God says, I've loved you with an everlasting love. I've loved you before you were born. I've knitted you together in your mother's womb. I have molded you in the depths of the world. I was there long before any human being was there. And I loved you, and I have written your name in my hand. You're safe in the palm of my hand. Long before you were born. And I'm sending you into this world for a little time, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 years. That's just a little bit. So that you have a chance to say, I love you too.
I think that he really was convinced that the love of God was the most important thing for him, personally and for everybody. But he had his moments of doubt, and he also said it to himself, that he was really God's beloved. He needed to affirm it for himself also, I think. He had his doubts and he had his depressions. And in this period of depression, he was also, I think he was tested in the depths of his faith.
All of us saw him as a wounded healer and a wounded prophet. Psychologically wounded, socially wounded. He was not quite comfortable in this world, in his own body, in his own place in life.
You know, I'm a person who lives things very deeply and therefore suffers deeply in a way. You know, like loneliness and feeling of rejection and feeling of anguish and struggle, you know, with all the big issues that people live with. I feel I have discovered them in myself, and it's from the wounded place in myself that I somewhere maybe can reach a wounded place in others, you know.
The enigma is all the paradoxes of his life. He, on the one hand, had all these needs and problems and struggles, and yet so many people found in him a kind of source of inspiration and a person who helped them transcend their own needs and problems and struggles.
On July 21st, 1957, Henry Nouwen was ordained as a priest.
Cardinal Alfrink was aware that Henry was a person of great gifts, that the diocese was too small for him, and that he had a calling for a kind of universal mission.
The bishop didn't send me to the parish, but said, you know, you'd like you to go on and study. And I said, what I would like to study is not more theology, but psychology, because I want to know a little bit more about how people behave, how they think, how they feel, what's going on in people's life. I always wanted to be a minister who has an understanding of psychology.
Henry was invited to come to the University of Notre Dame to teach psychology.
But my teaching from the very beginning, and I would say to the very end, was more a pastoral teaching than a scholarly teaching. I was very much interested in bringing people into a knowledge of God that was very real, very simple, very direct, and very much helping them in their own journey.
I would not label Henry conservative or liberal. It just doesn't fit his categories. Henry was radical in his love of God, radical in his commitment to Jesus Christ. He would mix with other people of faith, the Jewish community, very closely. Notre Dame gave him a sense that there continue to be people who are committed to justice and peace.
His lectures from Notre Dame, which focused on the integration of psychology and spirituality, were edited into his first book, Intimacy. Henry's reputation as a writer and lecturer was growing in the United States. As a result, he was invited to Yale School of Divinity to teach pastoral theology.
They gave me an enormous amount of freedom, and I felt what I had to teach was to integrate the integration between the spiritual life and the life of ministry. See, that's what I was interested in.
He would always have his lectures in three kind of organized parts, separated by thésée chants. And I've never heard a professor lecture that way, you know, to say a little bit for maybe 20 minutes, and then say, well, let's sing a song. He would have hospitality, open house on Monday nights at his apartment near the Divinity School, because hospitality was his core ministry. You never know when Christ, disguised as the stranger, will come knocking at your door. Make sure there's a room for him. Make space for God.
Henry brought an enormous ecumenical sensitivity to the Yale campus, inviting students of every denominational background to join with him for the Eucharist.
Quite a significant number of the incoming class at Yale Divinity School were coming because Henry was there.
Henry Nouwen published 12 books during his 10 years at Yale. One of his most significant books in the field of pastoral care was The Wounded Healer.
Loneliness, which is a wound, which is a pain, when you not run away from it, but feel it through, and that sort of in the middle of the pain, there is some gift hidden. And I more and more in my life have discovered that the gifts of life are often hidden in the places that most hurt.